Hello, beautiful human, and welcome back to Inner Space. I'm Danielle YS. I've spent my career at the intersection of space science, technology, and the deeper questions of what it means to be human. And what I found is that the most uncharted frontier isn't out there, it's in here. Inner space is where we go within. Because in that inner terrain, beneath the accumulated layers of who you've been told to be and what you've been told to want, is the work you can't not do. The thread woven through every chapter, the dream that keeps beckoning you on, your soul signature. Inner space is where we recover it. Let's explore. Welcome back, everybody. This is Inner Space, and I am super excited for the next chapter of Inner Space because we are starting to do interviews. All of the episodes up until now have been me sharing whatever wisdom comes through as a channel, and now I'm really excited to invite other folks into Inner Space so that we can both be channels together and see what emerges. Today, for our very first interview, we are talking with Faelan Shiva. Faelan is an incredible human being, an incredible soul. We met about a month ago at a networking event for women entrepreneurs, and we dived in really deep and have had a couple conversations since then and realized that this was the right pairing to bring someone into Inner Space. Faelan Shiva is a priestess, an astrologer, and a sacred sound and voice alchemist. I wanted to open the floor up to you, Faelan, to welcome you and see if there's anything that's bubbling up to the surface, anything that's alive for you before we dive into deep conversation.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for having me. I have just enjoyed our natural flow of curiosity and the dialogues that have come out of that so much. I've been pretty excited about a couple of the questions I know we're going to talk about because they had come up in our last conversation and they were so juicy that that's how we got here. So I'm just really happy to be here and enjoy conversation about meaningful subjects.
I think that's one of the things that really drew me in the first time that we met and continuing, where we're not talking about light subjects and we're not talking about elevator conversations. We're able to dive deep, and I deeply appreciate the depth that we can go to. So I'm excited to bring that to everyone who's listening and for us to be in conversation again. Can you share with us what a priestess is and what you do as a priestess?
Yeah. So to me, a priestess is a person who is dedicated to anchoring the sacred into their everyday life and then does something about it. To me, priestess is an action word. Having a strong spiritual connection that nourishes us day to day is really important, but we can have that and then just have it for ourselves, which is all good and fine. But some of us are really driven to take that to the next step and to find a way to use that as service in the world. To me, that's what a priestess is. I don't think there is one recipe or one ingredient. And certainly there are different schools of initiation and training. But ultimately, I feel like it's just something that a person finds themselves called to do.
And how did you get there? How did you follow this path to become a priestess?
Yeah. Okay. How long is our podcast? Okay. So a really quick summary that I was just born different. I was born with a foot in both worlds, the other world and this one. And that was a really, first, it was a beautiful thing because it was easy for people around me to write it off as a imaginative child. Then when I got older, that became really difficult and then dangerous. And then I was raised in a Christian cult, I will call it. So it was a long process of so many things, and then a journey of wandering lost after I left my parents' home. Then eventually life circumstances. I've told this story a long time, so I'm skimming details. I ended up moving into a Buddhist ashram when I was 27 and 4 months pregnant. I lived there for 6.5 years. So there was this combination of I was just born like that, but then there was a lot of challenges to navigate to figure out my way. And then when I moved into the Buddhist ashram, I really gained a discipline of body, mind, and spirit that has served me really well. My time there ended just naturally. It was time for me to go find my way, my ancestors, my path. Then I found Druidry. And after having tried many different alternative spiritualities and many different pagan paths that just none of them quite landed right, that was it. Because it's really based on the indigenous practices of my Celtic ancestors. I'm an Irish Scottish gal, and it was the sweet spot for me. I went through 8 years of training there, and then I love studying and I love spiritual training. So I've done many expanded courses, you could say, apprenticeships since then. All of that really boils down to my drive to be connected with source every day. And my primary pathway for that I have found is nature.
One piece that's really pulling through for me that I feel like a lot of people wonder is what was it within you that told you that, oh, this path isn't quite right for me, and this other path of study also isn't it? And then once you landed in the Druidry, it was like, oh, yeah.
Resonance and authenticity are the two words I would use. When you're working in a spiritual field, an energetic field with spirit, there are vibrations, there are feelings, there are vibes, you could call them. Some of those feel better than others. When you find the right one, it's like a tuning fork where it just matches, the resonance just matches. It's like you feel like you have fallen into a groove that fits you perfectly. When I was exploring other pagan pathways, it was the early 90s and it was not a safe place. There's a lot of weird people. There were a lot of male leaders who really felt that all the ceremonies with the young girls should be in the nude. There was a woman that I lived and trained with for 3 months who did a lot of drugs and became a very unsafe person. So there's some obvious ways where you're just like, wow, this is not a good vibe. But then there's less obvious ways. Like in the Buddhist ashram, there was no danger like that. It was not a perfect place, and I have other stories about that, but it wasn't dangerous in that way. Ultimately, how did I come to know that it was time for me to leave is that I could hear the call of my ancestors, but I felt disconnected from them. I really didn't care about any of these Buddhist saints' birthdays. I just didn't care. I enjoyed the practices. I got a lot of meaning out of the practices, but when it came to holidays, it was like, oh, Guru such and such's birthday. And I'm like, I care much more about the cycles of nature. Those are things I feel. That's what it is. Things that I feel rather than things that are on a calendar. It's a complex story. And every time I'm on a podcast, people want to start with that. So I feel like I talked about it so much. But I really feel like resonance is the key. First, of course, make sure you're in a safe space. And then do you feel it? Does it evoke emotion? Does it evoke? Do you feel like you're in the right place? And that intuition that can be both very subtle and very somatic, that is your primary compass.
I love that you use those exact words because one of the pillars of the work that I do is somatic compass. And where I was going with the next question was, but what did it feel like in your body?
I love that. I've never used that phrase before.
Yes.
But it felt just right. No surprise that we're telepathically communicating right now.
Yep. So when you are in that resonance, what does that feel like in your body somatically?
Okay, so I don't know how it works for other people, but I often talk about how I have an intuition magnet that I can actually map landscapes with. I have found my way through mountains with it. What does it feel like? I don't think that there are words that we understand in the five senses that we tend to speak about. The best way that I can describe it is a very subtle magnetic pull, very subtle magnetic pull. When I'm off of it, like if I take a detour, I miss the feeling of the resonance of the magnetic pull. I'm actually really stumped, and I'm not often stumped for words, but my hairs are talking to me right now. The hairs on my arms are like, we're helping you. Okay. It is like an electrical current, very comfortable, a comforting electric current. I don't, that's really hard to answer.
When you're talking about this really subtle magnetic pull, do you feel it in your whole body or is it coming from a particular place in or around your body?
I actually feel like it comes from my belly.
Beautiful. When you're not in that resonance, I heard you say you miss the feeling of that pull. So it's like it's not that it's trying to pull you back on course, but it's just not there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, when I'm not on the right course, I feel in my shoulders primarily, and my neck and my head, there's more of a mental energy, and it feels constricting, like micro contractions
Mm.
that almost feel like static sounds, but it's so subtle. And so when I'm on the right path, I'm low in my belly. I feel not just grounded, but I feel, I don't know what the right words are.
Can you
Uh,
vocalize it without words? Is there like a sound that wants to come through?
mm,
Hmm.
if it was an audible sound.
Mhm.
And when I'm not on the right course, it feels like
Mhm. Mhm. Feel that. My hand was like, whoa, yeah.
yeah. So
Tuning, attunement,
yes,
vibrations. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Thank
Wow.
you for that prompt because that really helps.
I love it. And we're not even into the juicy questions. So, when you found that groove, it was like this feeling of the magnetic pull from your belly and the resonance. Whereas before, in the other paths that you were taking, was it always the or was it just like on and off?
Oh, because I think that you can be on good paths that aren't the path. And those don't sound so staticky, but they also are like a really nice tune that's not your tune, like somebody else's favorite song.
Going back to what you were saying of I don't really care about the guru's birthdays. I care about nature. And like that's
Yeah.
someone else's song, maybe that speaks to them. And that's what makes them go,
And of course, I mean, obviously, I have a lot of veneration and respect for these Buddhist saints. I often consider them a foster family for me. They took me in, they healed me up, they took care of me, and then it was time for me to go. What I mean about the holidays where I don't really care about those birthdays is like, I just don't feel them. It's not that
right.
I dislike them or like them. I have zero feeling. There is no feeling.
That zero feeling isn't your song either,
Right.
because life isn't meant to be moved through with zero feeling.
Yeah. For me, a big way that I follow my inner compass is the sound that things don't make. I have
Mm.
literally said for many years when I'm trying to vibe check somebody, I need to sit next to them and hear the sounds they don't make. It's not audible in the way that we think, but hearing is the best description of what we do understand to describe it. The same way with life paths, the same way with spirituality, the same way when you are next to a creek in the redwood forest and you can feel that there is a mountain lion. This is from my real experience. I lived with a lot of mountain lions. You feel it, but you didn't hear anything. You didn't see anything. The sound changed, and now the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up, and you have suddenly a feeling like you are about to be eaten. But there was no actual audible sound, there was no
Mm.
visual. A really important aspect of this that I think doesn't get talked about enough or understood enough, maybe, is that our bodies are an instrument of perception. The whole thing, your whole body, not just your eyes and your ears. And so a lot of psychic senses, a lot of intuitive knowing is something you can sense with your body. And that is how I navigate the world. That's how I know when I'm on the right path. That's how I know when to put boundaries. It took me a long time. You know what? I was going to say it took me a long time to develop, but I'm going to correct that. It took me a long time to remember because you don't need to develop it. It's your birthright. Oh my gosh, my whole body is responding to that. It's your birthright. You're born that way, but it gets trained out of us somehow. And all we have to do is remember. But there is a lot of work and transformation and alchemy to remove the blocks so that you can remember.
It gets trained out of us because we live in a world that loves to focus on the mind and that noise all the time.
And it's exhausting.
It's exhausting because it's designed to be exhausting.
I'm with you.
So much goodness already that's oozing out of this conversation. So, the second time that we talked, I was spending a lot of time understanding what you do as a priestess and asking you a lot of questions about what you do, what your philosophies are, and how you show up in the world. And in the back of my head, I was like, it feels a lot like being a shaman, but maybe it's not like being a shaman. I don't know what I'm missing, and maybe there's something that might be offensive for me to even make that connection. And so I just flat out asked you, I was like, I might be offensive and I might be totally naive, and I'm sorry if that's true. But Phelan, what is the difference between a priestess and a shaman?
Yeah, to which I said not much. Fundamentally, the work is the same. When it comes to beings that are being worked with and correspondences and cultural practices, they can be quite different. A lot of people who do what I do label it under shamanism. And on the British Isles, a lot of ordained druids say that they practice Celtic shamanism. And what they mean by that is they're practicing the indigenous practices of the Celtic lands. But the word shaman has a lot of cultural meaning, and even that is misunderstood. So it doesn't feel like my word. So shaman is originally a word from the Sami people in Siberia, and it described their medicine people who work with land spirits and their indigenous practices with nature. I don't know where or when it transferred its meaning onto a lot of South American medicine people culture, but it is so widely accepted as such now that when people say the word shaman, that's who they think of first. And I have had the privilege of being in a few different ceremonies over the decades with shamans. And I'm always struck that even though the forms are different, the beings are different, it's the same. I often think, oh, this is exactly what I do, you know? And I find that to be really beautiful, but ultimately it's just not my word. And neither of those cultures are mine, the Sami people or the South American people. They seem to also have adopted it. And priestess is an English word, so I don't feel bad about using it. And to me, it denotes that action. So the action part is really important. Fundamentally, there's not a lot of difference, but I think when it comes down to the details and relationships with spiritual beings, there's a lot of difference.
And you've said with priestessing and the word priestess, it denotes action for you. What part of that feels like the action coming through?
I use my connection and relationships with the natural world to facilitate divine access for other people. So just like there's a mechanic, and that's who I'm going to take my car to. I don't want to learn how to fix my car. I'm not interested in doing that. I want to take it to somebody and they fix it. Just like there's a doctor, and that I'm not going to take my broken body to the mechanic. I'm going to take it to the doctor. There are priestesses, and their gift is developing and honing these relationships and being able to create the sacred space and time so that you can come and visit it and have direct divine experience in a sacred container without having to do all of the work and upkeep to develop that on your own. Does that make sense?
I'm curious how many of the people that you work with are of that nature where they don't want to learn to cultivate that direct access for themselves, but they do want the experience versus how many of them do want to learn to cultivate that direct access? Because I know that you train other priestesses also.
I think that concept goes back to when there were community celebrations. And we can think about this now, like with weddings. Somebody is creating that space, somebody is there as the officiant, and you just come and you visit and you celebrate the community. Another good way to think about it is the seasonal holidays around the equinoxes and solstices and the halfway points in between, often called the Wheel of the Year. Somebody or some group of people are setting that up as an experience, and then whoever wants to come can come. And some of those people will have a deep relationship with spirit. And some of those people are just like, oh, I just wanted to take my kid to something nature based for May Day. You know, here's a good example. When I hold women's circles, I am priestessing, even though I didn't advertise it as a pagan event. But I am creating that container and I am holding space with energies that I have developed relationship with for them to step in and have the transformation that they need and then go back. There's a lot of different ways it can happen. The Order of the Stag and the Rose is my priestess order. And we have a lot of people who train as priestesses or come to all the events or are developing their relationship with spirit. And then there's a whole bunch of priestesses doing the thing. And I love that. It's so awesome. One thing I don't use in my work is high priestess as a person who is the boss priestess and then everyone else is lesser. I'm not into that at all. Higher than what? When we put on an event and half the people there are priestesses, it's joyous. It's wonderful. And then some of them might be participating as certain positions in a ritual, or they might just be there to enjoy it. I don't think that there really has to be that much delineation about how much spiritual development a person has to attend. But the work of being a priestess, in my opinion, and what I bring to it, it takes a lot of upkeep. It's a high maintenance job, but it's the maintenance that I love to do. So to me, it doesn't feel like maintenance. Going to my altar every single day of my life and spending time connecting with source there brings me radical joy. I can't imagine not doing it. On the days where I don't get to because some life event happened, I get agitated. I feel a little bit more of the so to me, it doesn't feel like work. But if I don't do that, it isn't that I lose my connection to spirit. I get a little bit farther away from the that I'm holding for other people.
That brings me into the question of when you're priestessing and you are holding that for other people, what are your practices for maintaining that for yourself and not falling into the just because you're serving, or if you have experienced that in the past?
I think that at the beginning of holding that kind of space for other people, especially if there are people that you don't know coming, like you're hosting something publicly, I think that there's more of a crossover because you can get in your head and be like, oh, what if I do it wrong? What if I forget which direction is where? And all these things do happen. We're in human bodies and we're imperfect. So it is easy to get a little bit more mental. But ultimately, that's what practice is for. That's what all of our practice is for, so that in the moment we can bring ourselves back easily. And I believe that there's a lot of divine grace when you're there holding that space and you get mental, well, you've still created the structure, and I find that it still works. And hopefully you remember what you're doing, and then you get back in the But after a while, just like anything, you do it enough and you stop getting mental about it. And now it's not that I am perfect and I never make mistakes. I do. I just don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't have any judgment about it. And because I don't make any big deal about it, nobody else really notices or makes a big deal about it. Just like if I stumble on a sentence or a word, or I mispronounce a word and then correct myself in a conversation, nobody's like, oh, she's not a good talker. So it's really just a matter of relaxing into it. But this is exactly why the daily practice, the daily repetition is so important. Just like I was a professional dancer for 13 years, and you don't get to be a professional dancer and look good on a stage, make good art on a stage if you don't show up to practice.
Yeah.
You have to keep yourself in the flow or you get rusty.
Yeah, and thank you for you just gave me such a beautiful connection, because the question that I asked about the falling out of the and into the and I love that we have that language now.
I know, this made up our own language that makes more sense.
Exactly. Yeah, language of the body. The place that I was coming from with that was the experience that I've had and that I've heard from a lot of hands-on practitioners like masseuses or Reiki healers get really exhausted when they're doing hands-on, especially at the beginning of their practices, because they're taking on the additional energy from other people and it's not necessarily a clean channel. And what you're bringing in too is just being in a more mental place rather than in the embodied place is part of the recipe for that exhaustion, for the illness and the sickness that you can get from that kind of energy exchange. It's such a elegant and simple thing to be like, just get back into your body and into your attunement, and then everything's going to be fine. It's so simple.
It really is simple, but it does take that practice. And when you're being a channel, well, how does a channel work? It's a hollow bone, a hollow reed that has energy coming in one place and out the other. So if you just stay in tune with that, it happens by itself. You don't actually have to do anything. And the second that you start getting in a different place or getting distracted, now some of that energy is diverting and it can get stuck. So I'm not using, well, okay, this is a both things are true. When I'm channeling or I am holding that kind of ceremonial space, I'm not using any of my personal energy. Well, spiritually, the energy that's coming through is universal and it's not my energy that I'm spending. But let's be real, it's still an activity that I'm doing and using my personal energy to show up for,
Yep.
Even after I've just done a couple of back-to-back priestess weekends that are like Friday through Sunday. And it is exhausting, but it isn't depleting. That's different. I just need to take a nap and then I'm back.
I love that distinction, exhaustion versus depletion. The depletion is more on the physical energy side of things. The exhaustion is, how would you describe it?
I was just tired. I worked hard. So I need a rest now.
I'm curious, how did you know that you were meant for the priestessing path?
I think the same way that anybody knows they're meant for any path. It's just where your curiosity leads you. It's where your mind continues to lead you. It's where your experiences continue to lead you. It's the feedback that you get from people around you. Like my youngest is about to go to university to get a degree in fine arts. Well, how does he know that he's an artist? It's just what comes out of him. It's what he's drawn to. It's what he wants to do. It's what people tell him he's amazing at. My older kiddo, she's a professional ballerina. She's 23 now, and she has a full career in a ballet company. How does she know she wanted to do that? At 9 years old, she told me that's what she was going to do. And I was like, okay. And she never stopped. So I think that's one of the things that people may not realize is that being a priestess is, in some ways, it's just another calling, just like anything else. Dancer, artist, mechanic, accountant. Some people really like being accountants. I will say one more thing about that I've been thinking about lately. I thrive as a person, as an individual, when I get to stay constantly in my spiritual connection. It is my happy place. I love resting in the and avoiding the as much as possible. So I have structured my life to make it so that I can do that all the time. And I've had other jobs where, like even when I was a professional dancer and I loved that, I did my spiritual work on the side, but you've got to go do the other thing and then come back and do the priestessing thing. And to me, that separation felt very uncomfortable. So now my job is to just be in the all the time.
That makes me do that too.
Yeah, and I really like that. I really like staying in it. It's really comforting.
Oh, I love that. And something that came through for me that has been not quite a mantra recently, but just something that keeps popping back in is what is the work you can't not do? The way that you're talking about it is really beautiful because on the one hand, it's like it just comes out of you. And then this other piece that you're saying where it's like, no, life is still going to present you every single opportunity to keep doing that thing. You just have to listen to it.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I love training other priestesses is because I want everyone to feel like they can have access to be in their connection with spirit at all times, whatever that looks like for them. I'm really passionate about normalizing a magical life. So I provide as many opportunities so that people in whatever capacity they want, whether that's once a week or once a month or every day, or to make a whole career out of it, I want people to just feel like having access to their own magic and having access to source is just as easy as running water out of the tap. Okay, you do have to work at it, but still.
There's some infrastructure that's required.
You do have to work at it, but I want it to be really accessible. People to be able to build it into their life in the way that feels to them.
Define magic.
One of the textbook definitions that I heard is to use invisible means to create visible change. And I adopted that for a long time because I liked it, but I think it's even more simple than that. I think it is just using our own divine creative force to create change in the world. And people's magic comes out in different ways. And it doesn't have to look woo-woo. Anytime that we use our presence, our curiosity, and a spirit of love to make change in the world, I think that is people using their magic. Like the fact that we can just make stuff. What? I have spent 3 years trying to figure out how to garden in the desert. This year, I don't want to jinx it, but this year I'm having the most success I've ever had. And is that not magic? That from the coastal redwoods, I landed in the desert and I have had to work and get smart and figure it out and have all kinds of grief of sacrifices of things that have died or been eaten by the wilderness. And now I have this garden and I love it so much. And it's so beautiful and it brings me so much joy. And to me, that is just as magic as manifesting the career of my dreams or healing through spiritual means.
Your definition of magic reminded me of this yogi tea bag that I keep on my desk. It says, smiling is the most basic kind of piecework.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Using our own energy and gifts to make a change in the world can be as small as smiling.
Yeah.
Magic.
And I think the primary ingredient that is missing, because people are making things all the time, right? They wake up, they make coffee, they go to work, they make money. People make things all the time. Well, what's the difference? I think the difference is presence and intention. Somebody could make their cup of coffee and be completely checked out, or somebody could make their cup of coffee with a spirit of gratitude and presence and really feeling what it feels like to be nourished by the beings of this plant. Those are really different experiences, and one leads to magic and one just leads to more of the same. Deep thoughts with Faelan.
It's so real. It's so real. And it's what so many of these practices are trying to teach us in mindfulness and presence. And it's just so easy to get in that mode in the society that we live in. Something that feels as small or inconsequential as making coffee in the morning can set you up for a totally magical day and continuing throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you can speak your intentions into it of what kind of day you want and then drink it. And now you've performed a ritual. No training required, just presence and intention.
Presence and intention. A question that comes through for me as we talk about your path to priestessing is the question of, can you choose to become a priestess or shaman? Can you be the person who says, I'm going to become a priestess or I'm going to become a shaman? I've heard that you have to go through some crazy shit to be able to choose that path. Let what just moved through you move. We'll meet you in the next part. Dear explorer, thank you for journeying into inner space today. If something in this conversation stirred something in you, like a long-forgotten song from childhood, let that be data, because your body knows before your mind does. Subscribe to Inner Space to keep exploring, and if someone came to mind while you were listening, share this episode with them, because we're not meant to navigate these depths alone. I'm Danielle YS, signing off with love from the edge of the unknown.